Led Zeppelin is one of the most influential and successful bands in the history of rock. Formed in England in 1968 by former Yardbird guitarist Jimmy Page. During its 12-year career, this band published 8 albums that in total have sold more of 300 million copies worldwide, becoming classified by the press as a band obsessed by power, volume and melodramatic resources that contrast with the subtlety of other British artists, becoming classified in a simplistic way as a band heavy metal. In this video, through their music you will meet the band that managed to transform the blues, folk, psychedelic rock and hard rock of the 60s into songs with a powerful, unique and unmatched sound full of dynamism, lights and shadows, expressiveness and versatility, to the point of being a band with highly emotional songs like the music of the great stars of early rock. These are stories behind Led Zeppelin songs. Number 8. Misty Mountain Hop. This song was included in the famous unnamed album, also known by fans as Led Zeppelin 4, since that was the chronological order it occupied in their discography, and which Jimmy Page decided to release without the name of the band, as a protest for the cold critical reception given to his third studio album. The song stands out for the melodic synchronization of guitarist Jimmy Page with bassist and keyboardist John Paul Jones, who, together with John Bonham's drums, give a very particular solidity and rhythm to the song, which has been catalogued as a combination of funk with the UK bassline style that places a strong emphasis on bass lines. The most common interpretation of the title is a reference to the Misty Mountains from the novel The Hobbit by British writer J.R.R. Tolkien, published in 1937. Likewise, the lyrics of the song have been interpreted as an alleged criticism of the events that occurred in the first march to legalize cannabis in England in London's Hyde Park, and where the police made mass arrests for possession of marijuana. The lyrics are said to reflect the singer's criticism of current society and hope for a better place and time in which complexes are replaced by individual freedom and a life of mutual support and sympathy. Number 7. The Levee Breaks.
Keeps on raining, Levee's gonna break.
This song was included on the band's 4th album and is a cover inspired by the original version by the African-American blues duet Kansas Joe McCoy and Memphis Minnie from 1929. The song talks about the consequences suffered by the African-American community who lived in the lower part of the Mississippi River when it overflowed in 1927 as a result of the intense rains that accumulated during that year. The Great Flood of the Mississippi River is considered of the most destructive tragedies in the history of the United States, and which forced the African American community to move to the western and northeastern areas of the country. The Led Zeppelin cover transforms the upbeat blues version into a slower, darker song, which begins with a unique drum sound by using a pair of dynamic microphones hung on the 3rd floor of a staircase above the drums, and later mixed to obtain a unique echo and resonance effect. Likewise, the harmonica and guitar were mixed to obtain an inverted echo effect, in addition to being slowed down to generate a muddier sound. This technical complexity makes it quite difficult to play the song live, so they only performed it a couple of times on their first tours, and it was not until the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995 that they performed it live again. Number 6. Rock and Roll. This is the second song to appear on the Led Zeppelin 4 album, and according to guitarist Jimmy Page, this song was recorded during a spontaneous jam while the band was finishing recording the song Four Sticks at the supposedly haunted farm of Headley Grange. Drummer John Bonham used to warm up on the drums by playing Little Richard's Keep a Knockin' intro, to which Jimmy Page was going through a creative block and frustration that led him to improvise a Chuck Berry-style guitar rhythm while the recording tapes they continued filming. 15 minutes later, they already had the bass of the song recorded. As time went by, Robert Plant noticed that the new composition proved to be a success for live concerts and became a fundamental part of the band's setlist. Named simply the most dynamic hard rock song in music, it was about to turn 30 in 2002, when it became the band's first song to be used for a commercial. The car manufacturer Cadillac used it for one of its television advertisements, managing to increase the sale of their cars by 16% that same year. In addition to earning a large sum of money from royalties, Robert Plant commented that he agreed that the song would be used in as many places as possible and that it was a good thing that a younger generation could know his music. Number 5. Black Dog. This song was the first single from the band's fourth album, recorded in the 70s, and quickly occupied the top spots on the American charts, as well as becoming one of the group's most popular songs. The song was recorded at the Headley Grange Mansion, an old asylum built more than 200 years ago and which became very popular in the 70s when they began to rent it seasonally, becoming very attractive to American visitors and likewise to other British bands, like Bad Company, The Pretty Things, Genesis, etc. For a time, an attempt was made to give a hidden meaning to the lyrics, seeking a mystical interpretation of the title. However, the song is simply a series of insinuations from the singer to a woman who is attractive to him in every way, but who is clearly not good for him. Once the song was finished, they didn't have a title, so Jimmy Page decided to call it Black Dog in honor of the Labrador dog that roamed the mansion's woods and that they adopted while they were recording. Number 4. Kashmir. According to the 4 members of the band, this is the most emblematic, epic and long song that reflects the authentic chemistry of Led Zeppelin and was included on the band's 6th album, Physical Graffiti, from 1975. Robert Plant composed the lyrics during an endless car trip through southern Morocco, and the other members added their input over 3 years until it was finished. The name Kashmir refers to a distant area between India and Pakistan, and even though none of the members were there, they chose it as the title. In several interviews, the members of the band agreed that this song is one of their greatest musical achievements. John Paul Jones said that the song showed all the musical elements that make up the sound within Led Zeppelin. Robert Plant commented that this was the song definitive of Led Zeppelin and who loved the intensity it reached without having to be classified as heavy metal, since they did not like that label. The tuning of the guitar shows a Celtic progression and tuning, making reference, along with various orchestral instruments, to the music of Morocco and the Middle East. Number 3. Immigrant Song. First song from the third studio album titled Led Zeppelin 3 from 1970. With this song, the band managed to enter the list of the first 15 places in the United States. The song was written after the band began a tour that year visiting Iceland for the first time. During that time, Robert Plant was fantasizing about the history of the Vikings who conquered that country, and as a joke, he wrote the song as a comparative, beginning with the phrase, "We come from the land of ice and snow." This song was intended to be different by adding a wild and primitive touch, both in the drums and in the bass and guitar riff, as well as in the singer's howls that refer to a group of Viking explorers ready to conquer new lands. The song took 6 days to be finished without imagining that it would become one of the most distinctive songs to start their concerts, at the same time that it would give them the nickname the Hammer of the Gods. The band originally refused to have their song used in the 2003 School of Rock film. However, actor Jack Black recorded himself on stage at one of their concerts along with thousands of fans, pleading to the rock gods for Led Zeppelin that they were given permission to use their song, which in the end worked for them. The lyrics of the song contributed a lot to inspiring the classic myth of heavy metal and the Viking figure, being a fundamental part of the art of later bands such as Iron Maiden, Manowar, Amon Amarth, etc. Number 2. Whole Lotta Love. It is the opening song of the band Led Zeppelin 2's second album from 1969 and became one of the most successful songs in their history. The lyrics of the song carry complete phrases from the song You Need Love by American blues musician Willie Dixon, and which was re-recorded by the father of Chicago blues, Muddy Waters, in addition to the style of singing and pauses that the band's Small Faces adapted into the cover they made of this song. Plant, being a staunch fan of blues and soul singers, used to quote their songs during concerts, and it was a very common practice among musicians of the decade. However, Dixon's daughter heard Led Zeppelin's song on the radio, and after notifying his father, he led the band to face a lawsuit in 1985 where it was finally resolved in Dixon's favor with a payment and credit on subsequent releases. What is considered one of the most important guitar riffs of the 20th century was composed by Jimmy Page while he was living on his houseboat on the Thames River on the outskirts of England. During the summer of '68, he was improvising with some rockabilly intros that he had liked since young, and when he had the riff, he knew it was something addictive and strong enough to sustain an entire song and not just open it. The drums were recorded in the same studios in London where Jimi Hendrix became a legend. Page even hired the same sound engineer, just as he chose a studio equipped with a special microphone layout so that John Bonham's drums explode like a panoramic sound experience. In an interview, Robert Plant said that Page's riff was already ready and everyone in the band liked it. But he didn't know he could sing, and at that moment, after talking about it a lot, he made the decision to use part of Dixon's lyrics, because it would be perfect. Plus it was released 7 years ago and represented another era and another style. The singer assured that despite having already paid for the use of the original song, in this game they only catch you if you are successful. Number 1. Stairway to Heaven.
She's buying the stairway.
The song, considered by many to be one of the highlights in the history of rock music, was included in the band's fourth album. Fed up with the negative reactions to their third release and that people considered them a setup, they decided to release this album without a title. According to Jimmy Page, the musical structure took almost a year to be ready, starting in 1970 with the recording of his third album in the semi-abandoned cabin of Robert Plant's family, and until the recording of the fourth album in the Victorian-style mansion of Headley Grange. It is said that the first time they played it live in 1971, the audience was not impressed as they expected to hear more popular songs from the band. Even Robert Plant questioned continuing to use the song later. However, in 3 years it went from being a great song to become the band's signature anthem. It was so successful that for a time music stores posted signs prohibiting playing Stairway to Heaven to try out their instruments. It is said that one time the radio station KBOO in Portland, Oregon was raising funds, and when they promised not to play the song on their station again if they met a fundraising goal, Robert Plant made them a donation of $10,000, and it is that in 1975 Robert Plant confessed that he was beginning to get tired of the song. He said, "There are a limited number of times you can sing it seriously, and then it just becomes a false moralistic sense." The lyrics of Stairway to Heaven were written by Robert Plant, inspired by Lewis Spence's book Magic Arts in Celtic Britain. However, this was accused of having Satanist messages when played backwards. Robert Plant commented in an interview that they were so proud of their song and its profound message that the mere idea of imagining subliminal messages seemed something dirty to them. Something very American, and that nowhere else in the world had they cared so much about looking for this type of messages within it. However, it was known that part of the lyrics of the song were composed in the mansion that guitarist Jimmy Page would have bought from the occultist, Aleister Crowley, who was known to practice black magic and organize rituals, orgies, and drug use. The rumors of Satanism around the band gained more strength when its members began to experience different tragedies, starting with the car accident that Robert Plant suffered that same year and which left him in a wheelchair for a time. 2 years later, Plant would suffer the death of his son Carrick Pendra due to a strange stomach infection. And finally, the death of drummer John Bonham from an alcohol coma would end with the band's separation in 1980. There is no doubt that Led Zeppelin left a great legacy as one of the bands that made a lasting and influential impact on the development of studio album music. With multiple awards over the years, this band managed to have its music, due to its cultural, historical, and aesthetic importance, be considered by the United States Library of Congress as the nation's sound heritage. If you liked the video, share it with your friends and family so they can learn more about these bands. Remember that you can also leave us in the comments box what other songs you would like to see in these videos. Until next time.